That's left, march. Left, 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 right, left, left, right, left, 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 right, left. Company, halt! Company, front. Company, present, arm.
Hip hip, huzzah! Hip hip, huzzah! Hip hip, huzzah! Vive le Roy!
I represent a group we call ourselves Pelum Battery. It's Confederate artillery, and Major John Pelum fought for Alabama during the Civil War. He had an appointment at West Point from 1858 on. Never graduated. 2 weeks prior to graduation, the state of Alabama took a vote and they voted to secede from the Union. And at that time, poor Pelum didn't know what he wanted to do. He wanted to finish school, he wanted to get his commission, he wanted to make a career out of the military, but his people in Alabama said, you better come home now while the getting's good. So he and his roommate Tom Rosser, who was from Virginia, left West Point in the middle of the night 2 weeks prior to graduation. Made their way back to Alabama. Rosser went back to Virginia. They took up arms against the North. The year was 1861 when Alabama seceded from the Union, and John Pelum came back there with his military experience from West Point, was made a lieutenant. And as much as he wanted to be a cavalryman, because he was one heck of a horseman, and he proved that through West Point, his time there. But Alabama says, you know what, I think we need you more into the artillery. So they put him in artillery, and he became a brilliant, brilliant artillerist. This is a replica of a 12-pound howitzer. The bore, you noticed, is kind of small, and the question is, how do you get a 12-pound ball down that bore? Well, when the cannon was made, the bore was made to just about 3 inches, and we decided not to bore it out any larger for economic reasons. It would cost more to bore it out, and then it'd cost more to shoot it. Right now, this is about a 7/8 scale 12-pound howitzer that was used basically out in the Western campaign. Very little of the howitzers were used out east, but one of the nice things about this cannon, it was basically a defensive gun. And you could hide it behind bushes, you could hide it in tree lines, and the only telltale sign of when you fired your cannon was, of course, the huge plume of smoke created by the black powder. It is a black powder cannon. It's muzzle loaded, and the implements that you'll see here are used in choreography with the procedure for loading and firing the gun. It takes 5 guys to operate this gun. any muzzle loading cannon, whether it be a 6-pound howitzer, 12-pound, 10-pound Parrott, anything that's muzzle loaded, the procedure is the same. The number of men to handle the gun is the same. And there's procedures in place so that it's safe. We pride ourselves on safety. We've never had anybody get hurt. We plan on keeping it that way. And even though it doesn't shoot any kind of projectile, it is still a cannon. And the concussion out of the muzzle of this thing, if you're close enough, it will hurt you. The concussion of the gun is 180 degrees. So it goes off to the side as well as forward of the gun. John Pelum, when he became an artillerist, hooked up with Jeb Stewart, became part of his light horse artillery. They had very successful campaign, but unfortunately John Pelum met his demise at Kelly's Ford, which is along the Rappahannock River in Virginia between Culpeper and Fredericksburg. And it was March 17th, 1863, so he never even made it to Gettysburg. He was killed by an aerial burst round from a Union gun that caught a piece of shrapnel on the back of his head, knocked him off his horse. He died the next day at the ripe old age of 24 years old.
Right now I'm demonstrating the 1890s blacksmithing. I'm using an old-time forge. This forge is called a Riveter's Forge. It dates back in the 1890s is when they were started to sell these. Now I'm using coal for fuel, and I got a piece of iron in here right now that I'm making into an S-hook. That's about 2,000 degrees when it's heated up like that. I'm going to hammer it out to a point. After I have it hammered out to a point, I'll round the 4 edges on it. Then we're going to put a little monkey tail on it. A little monkey tail is just a little round circle so you don't have a sharp point to hook yourself on. So you got a little round circle. Now we're going to warm it back up a little bit. Like I said, when it comes out red, it's about 2,000 degrees. That's one of the irons you don't want to pick up. The other one I always tell the people, if you're going to a blacksmith shop, don't pick up a gray one because that's going to be hot also. Now because the red is real hot on that point, we're going to cool it off in water so I don't flatten that little circle out. Now we got the little hook made. Now we're going to heat the center up, put a little twist in it. I had the other end already made. As I pump the handle up and down, it turns this blower, and that's what's forcing the air. I'm using 1/4-inch square stock. The anvil probably dates back into about 1700s. Everything I have here is all antiques. They're all old. I'm going to cool it off a little bit on that end. You want it red in the middle, so that's where you're going to twist it. Then you just turn the two, and you get across from each other. Then you re-grip it, touch it up a little bit so it's straight. Then we're going to take this steel brush and clean it. And after we have it cleaned, I'm going to cool it off just a little bit. Then we're going to take this brush, which is brass. The reason I cool it off is brass melts at a lot lower temperature, and we're going to turn this gold color. The brass will actually melt onto the iron and turn it gold color. Once I get it on there, we're going to take beeswax and put coating over the top so it won't rust. They didn't have spray paint back then, so they used beeswax or linseed oil. This is beeswax. It's on the dark side because it's been used over and over. You just recycle it. We're going to do the same thing on the other end. And we got a little S-hook. This one has 2 different ends. This has a little monkey tail. This has a little flattened tail on it. So you got 2 different shapes on it. So that's how you make the little S-hooks. This is 22 years. A buddy of mine by the name of Mike Smith, he wanted to get into camping. He checked out a rendezvous and we seen another blacksmith doing it. And him and I both started at the same time. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple years ago, so he's not doing it anymore. There's not very many blacksmiths around anymore. It's a good little hobby. We make a little extra money doing it, helps pay bills, and it's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of nice people, and so that's how we got started.
I'm the land sergeant for Baron Ursa Alexander Guthrie. I'm the man responsible for training the militia of the 4th Baron of Guthrie, who is the Lord Warden of the Marches of Scotland from 1525 to 1575. The marches were established in the early 1500s, right around 1505, in answer to Scotland becoming an independent country. At the time, a state of unofficial warfare existed between Scotland and England from 1505 all the way through to 1610. At that time, both sides created wardens to watch the borders. These wardens had parties of men who acted as border patrol. They were called reivers. The reason they were called reivers was because during the day they would patrol the borders, watch for incursions. At night they would cross the borders and raid their counterparts' villages, steal cattle, steal the resources, and take them back over the border. The term reiving comes from the actual border reiving back and forth, sometimes 40 miles in a day, north or south. So you would, if you lived on the borders of England and Scotland between 1505 and 1610, during that period, it was not uncommon for the borders to change so dramatically that at the beginning of the month you might be under the protection of an English warden. At the end of the month you might be under the protection of a Scottish warden because the border had shifted 20 miles to the north or 20 miles to the south. Right now, this is actually Ursa Alexander Guthrie, and right now what he is doing is he is attaching rivets and tooling and creating a cover for a targe, which is a Scottish shield. Once he is done with the rivets and everything like that, he's going to be doing some tooling, creating some design work, and then that will be sewn onto the front of the shield right over here to the right. To finish that out, then the leather will be dyed and painted, and then it'll be finished and it'll be ready to be used.
I'm Joe Roman. Today I'm representing the Grand Army of the Republic, though formerly of the 3rd Wisconsin Infantry Reenactment Group. All right, now your question was on the particular colors which I made back a dozen years ago or so. This is actually a flag. You notice the canton is a star of stars. The canton is the blue section up there, all right, with 35 stars on it. Now this flag was actually based upon the 2nd Massachusetts flag. The 3rd Wisconsin, from the beginning of the Civil War, actually were so close to the 2nd Wisconsin. From the first day, we were brigaded with the 2nd Massachusetts Infantry, and they were our best friends. So I made this flag, and it didn't designate the 2nd Massachusetts, but I used it as a generic flag as part of it. Now the canton up here, the blue section, it was not established by Congress until 1912 how to set up the star field in a flag, until 1912. So you could put your stars up there any way you want. That's why you'll see so many Civil War flags that that are different. Now today, you have the American Legion, you have the Veterans of Foreign Wars. With the Grand Army Republic, where we're just Civil War ex-Union soldiers. And all the veterans, all the benefits they have today is because of these boys. Between 1866 and say about 1900, they got their benefits. They were so politically powerful. They elected presidents, unelected them. 5 out of 6 presidents between the end of the Civil War and 1900 were essentially Grand Army Republic members. But every town, if you go into Milwaukee in some of the old buildings, you'll see GAR up there. They don't even know what they're from anymore. But they died out in 1949 when the unit disbanded, or when the organization disbanded with the last 5 veterans. When I first joined the unit in 1989, they didn't have a flag. So I decided I wanted to make one. So I did. I made the first one, which I still have at home. The second one I made for the unit, and we flew it because nobody else had a flag, and all the reenacting, we started it. And then I started making some flags for some other units who wanted flags. So now everybody's got flags these days. All right. I guess think a flag is a big part of the unit and the camaraderie that you have. All right, and so it's just the little things make things important, is what it is. It's the little things. The colors, you march in a parade with a flag. The flag, as you'll notice, is not what we have like a 3x5 or a 6x8. This is almost square, 6.5 by 6 feet, which was the standard colors, the size according to regulations of the Civil War era for the units. That's what it was. So 6 by 6.5. Feet, so it was almost perfectly square. But I'll tell you, when you get a color guard and you're marching down there, it makes you feel so proud. Actually, they have the colors, and you'll find people saluting it and everything else. And on the Civil War flags, you'll find either 34, 35 stars, depending on when the states come in. This is actually the standard bugle of the Civil War. It's a French clairon. There are thousands of these imported from France. So this was the standard one. They got away from drums because drums were so low in their tone that these give out orders. As a bugler, for the infantry alone, it would be about 49 bugle calls I have to learn just for the infantry. Master bugler, triple that for the cavalry and the artillery. But this gave out orders. I could tell you to do anything with this bugle. Backwards, forwards, to the right, to the left, fall back, everything. This is the field phone of its day, is the bugle, all right? So right now I'll just play attention, which would actually, I would be calling the regiment into line with full kit and rifles ready to move out to battle. That'd be an attention call. That would be attention. So everybody come running, they put on their leather gear, and they all get in formation in line ready to go. Ready for battle.
Everywhere, but none can compare with my wild Irish rose. My wild Irish rose. My one, the dearest flower that grows. And someday for my sake she may let me take the bloom from my wild Irish rose. My rose, the bloom from my wild Irish rose.
Fire in the hole!
I've never had a problem.
Well, I'm here with a group called Historical Timekeepers, and we represent civilian occupations during the Civil War era. And I am portraying a Civil War era schoolmaster and pastor. As a schoolmaster and pastor, I'm concerned with the health of the people in my congregation and the children in the school, and so I'm presenting information about horse pollution back in the 1860 era, Civil War era. Milwaukee, when they had a population of 350,000 people in the 1800s, had a population of 12,500 horses in the city. These were just the ones that lived in the city, plus others that came in during the day from the outlying farms. These horses just that lived in the city produced about 133 tons of manure and 40 to 50,000 gallons of urine every day on the city streets. When it would rain, that manure would turn into a liquefied manure slush. Streets, of course, back then were dirt streets. When wagons would pass, people would get splashed with this liquefied manure. The wagons would churn that manure into dust, which would settle on food and drink. People complained about having to breathe pulverized horse dung. Epidemics were rampant back at that time. Cholera, typhoid, various other things because of breathing and eating all of this pulverized horse dung and other filth that was on the streets. So with the coming of the automobile, our cities now are much, much cleaner than they were back in the days of horse and buggies. The horses were used to pull the city streetcars. The first city streetcars were horse-drawn. Fire engines were drawn by the horses. The city used horse-drawn wagons to collect the ashes and the garbage. So there were lots of horses in the city. A lot of people did have them. The horse-drawn streetcars themselves cut down on pollution, because if you had, say, 10 people riding the horse car, that meant instead of 10 horses, you only had the 2 that were pulling it. And those 2 horses would be serving a lot of people, including the ones that couldn't afford their own horse. So the horses pulling the streetcars themselves cut down pollution quite a bit in the city.
My name is Doug Smith, and I'm representing a Confederate artillery captain with what would be called horse artillery or flying artillery, the units that usually went out in support of cavalry units. The standard Civil War artillery piece of the day was a muzzle-loading piece. In this case, the gun we have on display here is what's called a mountain howitzer. The mountain howitzer used approximately a half-pound charge there, firing a 12-pound ball. It's a 4 5/8 inch bore on the actual piece. This gun was made primarily to be broken apart and shipped on 3 mules. However, with the particular carriage that it's on, this carriage could also be attached to a 2-wheeled limber cart which had ammunition chests on it, and the cart was pulled by 2 horses. The mountain carriage there was slightly taller wheels and a little bit narrower axle width. Not a common gun during the Civil War. Most of your field pieces were larger, had 57-inch wheels as standard. Came in a variety of weights and sizes there, but primarily you had either smoothbore artillery or you had rifled. Your prime smoothbore gun of the war there was what they called the smoothbore light gun of 1857, which was more commonly known as a Napoleon. Napoleon was made of bronze for the most part. The Confederates did make a few out of iron. But the basics of the gun was that it would be able to do everything the older 12-pounders would do, but it used less metal in its manufacture. The gun fired 4 different types of ammunition. It would fire ball, it would fire shell, which was hollowed out ball, and it was fused to explode. You also had what was called case shot, which was the shell which had the addition of additional iron shot inside of it. And then the very last round that they fired, and statistically the most dangerous round of the war, what was called canister. Canister would convert the gun into a giant shotgun. 12-pound canister shot for the Napoleon contained 64 iron balls and a tin can. And like I say, at ranges of 400 yards or less there, it was very deadly to attacking infantry and cavalry. The Basics of this gun is that it is a muzzle loader. There were some breech loaders during the Civil War. They were imported. Armstrong's, Whitworth guns. They were British-made guns. The Whitworths especially had some phenomenal ranges, but your average range of a piece, your Napoleons fired about 1,600 yards max. Your two common rifles there, iron rifled guns there, 3-inch rifles I should say, what they called the 3-inch ordnance rifle of 1861, and that gun had a range of about 1,800 yards. The Parrott gun, which was a similar piece but made out of cast iron rather than wrought iron like the 3-inch ordnance rifle, it had a range of about 1,830 yards is what it was rated at. Napoleon was the maid of all work for Civil War artillery, but it was also the swan song for the bronze smoothbore gun, because the rifled guns, while they didn't pack the punch for field pieces, but if you could make them bigger, and they did make them bigger, for siege guns and garrison pieces and the like, they had greater range, greater accuracy, and as the technology developed, they made them to pack more of a punch.
Fire! Very good. Clear. Fire!
Both barrels I'm gonna let go.